Well, let's speak now to Jonathan Conricus, a former IDF spokesperson who's joining us now live. Jonathan Conricus, thanks very much for making the time to speak to us today. Let's just pick up on that final point from John Craig there, quoting the Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who says that the humanitarian suffering in Gaza has reached new depths. The IDF say that they are going to be pausing military operations in three areas, Al-Mawasi, Deir al-Balah and Gaza City. Does that tell us that we're moving into a new phase?
Hello, thanks for having me on. What I think it tells us is that Israel, the Israeli Prime Minister and his cabinet have succumbed to international pressure and have been forced to make a quite drastic strategic about-face. This is contrary to what the Israeli government has been operating along and informing the Israeli public and directing the Israeli forces. And what we're seeing is something very different, which I'm afraid will prolong the war. It will eventually strengthen Hamas. It diminishes the chances of bringing back hostages as part of a deal. And I think in the long run, we will not see positive results of this, but I think it will prolong suffering, because this means that Hamas gets more oxygen. They will now be emboldened because they see that their information campaign has been successful and Israel has been forced to change its strategy, which, to be fair, was very, very slow and was not working well enough and not delivering on the battlefield. So a good day for Hamas. I think they're very happy with the achievements.
Mr. Conricus, 59,000 Palestinians have been killed in this war since the 7th of October, since the Hamas terror attacks of the 7th of October. You're saying that Israel has bowed to international pressure, but that pressure surely has reached a point now where the Foreign Secretary here is saying that humanitarian suffering has reached new depths. Many around the world, even allies of Israel, are saying that enough is enough and it's time now to try a different strategy here to bring about an end to the fighting and bring peace to the region. Why do you think Hamas will be strengthened by stopping the fighting?
Yeah, first of all, just to reflect, the numbers that you cite are based on Hamas, and I think it would be correct to point out that these are Hamas figures, and they are not verified by anybody else. And I believe
in previous
that
wars, but in previous wars, the UN have always had similar figures to what Gaza
the
Health
UN
Ministry
is always very happy to support Hamas communications. We've seen that in this war as well, to really horrible levels. But to your question, even if that number is correct, I think the number is less relevant because we're talking about winning or losing a war. I don't think that anybody asked questions about the amount of casualties when Britain was facing Nazi Germany or when the Americans were fighting against the Germans or the Japanese. You fight
different
until...
situation. Mr. Conricus, but I know that IDF soldiers are dying in Gaza
but it's
at the moment,
still a war. And fighting a war
rockets
is
aren't being fired
eventually
into
about
Israel
winning.
at the moment. Does Israel still feel under threat from this Hamas terror organization at this point?
Yes, definitely. Hamas, as long as Hamas has organizational structure, military capabilities, leadership and logistic capabilities, Hamas will regrow.
Mr. Conricus, all of its backers have been killed. All of its leaders have been killed. Its backers have been disabled.
Just in the first part of my answer, and I am answering your question, so I would really be happy to say more than one sentence before being interrupted. Yes, Hamas is a threat, and most importantly, will be a threat if they are left intact and if they are not defeated and if they do not surrender. And that is what guides Israeli policy, and that is why Israel needs to defeat an enemy, which is what you do in war. When war is brought upon you, then you need to fight in order up until your enemy is defeated. That is not the case yet.
You dispute the numbers, but tens of thousands, I'm sure you'll agree, have been killed in this war. 50 hostages still being held by Hamas. Hamas aren't firing rockets into southern Israel any longer. Hamas's leadership has all been killed. Its backers have been disabled in Hezbollah and Iran. To what end is the IDF looking to reach at this point?
So what Israel, I think, understands that it needs to do, and this is Israeli government directing the IDF. The IDF doesn't do anything at its own vocation. It is guided by the decisions by the Israeli cabinet, and the Israeli cabinet, in the second week of the war, decided that Hamas needs to be defeated militarily and dismantled as the governing
And you don't think
force
that's
over
happened at this
Gaza.
point yet? You don't think that's done?
Sadly, no. Sadly, no. I wish that could have been done, and I personally believe that it should have been done many months ago. But what Israel has been doing is advancing one step and then receding two, and then advancing two and receding one, instead of going straight forward with significant force and with a clever
You
and
would want to
coherent
see
strategy.
Israel bringing more force into Gaza, despite the numbers that I've quoted to you, the tens of thousands that have been killed and the at least 20 hostages who are still alive and the 50 hostages that are being held by Hamas. You'd like to see there being more violence in that region from the Israelis to reach this end?
No, I'm not looking for violence. I'm looking for victory, and I'm looking for safety for Israeli civilians, so that in a few years from now, Israeli civilians living in their homes in the very same communities that were attacked by Hamas on October the 7th, unprovoked, when Hamas invaded into Israeli territory, we don't want that to happen again. And my understanding is, and this is shared by most military professionals around the world, is that until you defeat an enemy and until you get him to surrender, then you are again exposed. And I don't want my Israeli civilians to be exposed as they were on October the 7th. And I want to prevent that situation from happening. That is what this war is about. And I think missing from the conversation here is, what is Hamas and what are their goals? Are their goals the representation of the Palestinian people? Are they about prosperity and living peacefully side by side with Israel? No, their goal is jihad. Their goal is the destruction of the entire modern state of Israel. Every man, woman, and child is a target of Hamas, and it's only a matter of capabilities. And what Israel needs to do is to make sure that they do not have neither the capability nor the political structure to do such a thing again. And in order to bring that reality about, Israel has to defeat Hamas, and I'm afraid that the current developments do not bring Israel closer to it, and it will make the region less secure until Hamas is defeated.
OK, Jonathan Conricus, former spokesperson for the IDF. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.